You're just about to start a very exciting role.
This is exactly what I'm looking for. This is my jam. And when I went to apply, it all just poured out.
Welcome to another episode of The Evaluation Coach, the podcast where we talk about career growth and the field of evaluation. I'm your host, Maria Montenegro. Today, I have a special guest that just completed my signature program, The Evaluator's Edge. Amy Gray is a director of evaluation and learning and also a consultant with impressive experience conducting evaluation for feminist organizations around the world. Amy shares her experience of navigating misalignment in her career and the challenge of finding a job in this current job market. She talks about how finding her edge and clarifying her career direction helped her build her confidence and completely made the difference in her job search process. You'll see from her story that despite having a very impressive resume, it was really building her confidence that made the whole difference for her. So with that, let's dive into this episode. Okay. Amy, I'm so happy to have you here. And I know we're connecting at a very important time in your career. You're just about to start a very exciting role. So thank you so much for taking the time and being here. And I'm so proud of you and so excited for you to share the story of how you got there.
I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to talk about Evaluator's Edge.
Okay, so Amy, you just completed the Evaluator's Edge cohort that started in January and ended just at the end of April. And I know you and I had connected a little before that. Can you share with us where were you in your career before joining the program?
I think I was at a real low point in that I was working as a director at an organization and feeling like it should work, it should fit, that this should be my dream job. And it wasn't feeling like my dream job. And I wasn't sure, what am I good at? What can I do? I love learning and evaluation so much, but something's not clicking. I'm not able to deliver on what I need to deliver on, and I'm not seeing through the change management that I know needs to happen, and just wondering, okay, I need to be somewhere else because there's clearly misalignment, but I don't know, is this even the right field? Is this where I should be, even though I know it's where I want to be? And what does it look like to keep going? Is it just continuing to accumulate more senior title? What does it mean to actually move in this field and to have a career? So I just found myself really lacking confidence and second guessing and thinking maybe and looking at what I thought I was missing. So spending an extraordinary amount of time thinking about, do I need more technical skills? Do I need better technical skills? Do I need to be more of a quantitative data analyst? Is that what being an evaluator looks like? And so I think I knew I needed to move and do something, but I wasn't sure what, and I wasn't sure how. And that's when I said, Maria, help me.
What had you tried before? I know you're very involved in the evaluation community and you've been in the field for a while. So I'm curious to know, what are some of the things you tried and that helped or didn't help as you were trying to figure out how to move forward?
So I definitely tried thinking outside of my job. How can I take on consulting work? How can I volunteer my time? What does that look like to be more engaged with AEA, for example? I organized a lot of peer groups and peer cohorts where we would get together and talk about, what does care-centered leadership look like? How do we bring our values into practice? What does it look like to connect the more technical work with values, with culture? And so was trying to think outside of my quote unquote 9-to-5 job to see, okay, what else is out there? And I found it really invigorating and really helpful to be connecting with other people, to be understanding what they were working on, but also to be sharing some of the same frustrations, some of the same insecurity. A lot of the groups were mostly women, if not all women. And some of it was cultural, talking about what does it look like to show up, to be focused on care and to be value-centered in a profession that is also really prioritizing data and technical approaches. And so I found it just really helpful and affirming to be connecting with other people, but I still needed to earn a living. So that I was still trying to figure out, how can I do that? How do I keep moving to a healthier place? Maintaining those connections, the volunteering, connecting with other people, doing it remotely, doing all this remotely since COVID. which is invigorating, but it doesn't mean that you'll necessarily be able to pay your bills. And so how do I create that balance?
And what do you think was missing for you to get you to that balance and to find that next position that allowed you to pay the bills but felt more aligned?
I think clarity on how did I fit? What did I have to offer? I've been working in the nonprofit development humanitarian world for about 20 years and in evaluation for about 15, but I never really felt that I was truly an evaluator. And so I think it was just realizing being an evaluator looks like a lot of things. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you are technically good at quantitative analysis. It can show up in different ways. And so I think having that clarity about what I had to offer, how I fit, and realizing that what I think I and others tend to call the soft skill, it's actually really quite technical. So being able to guide groups through developing an evaluation framework, being able to develop a data collection plan, being able to engage with building a theory of change and really interrogating that, being able to facilitate full stop. Those are all actually quite technical processes because it's not just knowing how to do something, it's being able to help others know how to do something. And so really realizing that gave me a lot more confidence in being able to then define, this is how I show up. And I think being part of a capitalist society, I think sometimes I was stressed that because I didn't have something, it meant someone else had it and I needed to get it, as opposed to there is enough for everyone and there is space for everyone. And so here is my unique set of skills and capabilities and background that fits well with what other people are bringing too. And there's more power in that. And so that also made me relax because it means I can explore what I enjoy and what I bring. And it's not at the cost of someone else, or it's not asking someone else to give something up. And that felt really powerful to me.
I loved seeing that transformation you just described from questioning where you were going and really focusing on the gaps to identifying what is that unique contribution you bring. So I can't wait to start talking more about how you got there. I'm so curious to know, what was the turning point for you? When did you decide, okay, you needed that extra support in your career and you decided to join the program?
So I was feeling so stuck. I was trying all the usual things, volunteering, peer groups, the therapy, looking at job descriptions, looking and revising my resume for the 8 millionth time, and feeling again like these things aren't working. And also, it felt like the field, our sector was going through crisis. And so I felt like I was doing the same old things that weren't working, and I wasn't positioning myself well for where the field was moving. And I remember I reached out to you to say individual coaching help. And that's when you mentioned Evaluator's Edge. And I'm like, oh my God, this is it. Because it's the amazing parts of coaching with peers and having a group, having a cohort to work through with, but focus specifically on my sector, on my field. So I don't have to explain, as I feel like we all have to do, to our parents, to our friends, to our families, what's evaluation? What does it mean? What does it look like? And you're trying to explain it and people aren't really getting it. And it's like you cut out all of that, get right to the good stuff because people know they're speaking your language. And I'm like, that's going to be different. That's going to surely be so helpful because we can really cut to the chase of what does it look like? What does it mean to move in this sector or move in this space or move in this field? And really get to grips with, okay, so how do you reposition yourself given the current environment?
Absolutely. I love that because I think we've all been in that position where we've had to explain to someone, sometimes someone we're paying to support us, what evaluation is. And that's one of the beauties of the Evaluator's Edge. Reflecting back on the program and the experience we had working together for 12 weeks, Amy, I think one of the biggest transformative moments I saw you having was after the first module. So for people that are listening, in our first module, we really focus on that self-reflective practice, gaining that clarity Amy was discussing. We create our own logic model with your strengths, your lived experience, your values, and really how all of that plays a role in the unique evaluator you are with the unique strengths you bring into our sector, and then creating that career vision so that we know where we want to go. And Amy, I'm so curious to know, what were some of the aha moments you experienced as you were doing that work?
Oh my gosh, so many. I think what some of the primary ones, I think I came into the program feeling a bit defeated and feeling like I know I must have achieved something at some point, but I don't know what anymore. And I can't remember the examples, or I can't think of them clearly enough. And being able to systematically go through and to identify what's important to me. And for me, it was organizational culture of learning values. Those need to be present. Those are just necessary preconditions. And being able to define those and then to dig back in my past and pull out actual examples to be able to write about them in a way that was based on me, like being able to describe them in my own words and being able to write as much or as little about them as possible. So having that self-reflection, and then by self-reflecting and writing and producing using the forms, I could go back and look at them and say, oh my God, that's right. I did do that. And I did do that. And then having people around me, you and the rest of the cohort saying, yeah, you said that, but can you pull a little more out? Can you say a little bit more about what does it take to lead an organization through building a learning system, which I had taken for granted as I tried to help organizations learn. Like it gave it more structure. It gave it more seriousness. And then in return, it gave me more confidence because then I could look at it and say, oh, wait, I am doing that. I am showing up, taking the values that I think are important and marrying them with organizational learning frameworks and systems. And that's the systems thinker and learning practitioner I want to be, that I aspire to be. And I'm not fully there yet, but I'd clearly started down a path that I didn't even fully appreciate I had started down. And I think it was by the reflection, the prompts, the questions, and actually the act of writing it down and reflecting back on what I'd written that helped pull it together for me.
I love that. And as you said, something important is that process of being able to go back to it in the moments when you actually need it. Moments you need to remind yourself, no, wait a minute, I've actually done that. I've actually accomplished all of these amazing things. And one of the things that I remember when you started the program, you were already in the job search process and you continued that through the program. And now I know you've landed an amazing role. And I'm so curious, like, how did that clarity, how did having those things written down help you approach that job search differently after you had done that work?
So before the program, I was definitely applying to anything that had data in the title. Junior role, data analyst, things I was not qualified for. And I knew I wasn't, but yet I felt I need to apply. I need to try. I need to throw my hat in, even though there are 3,000 million other people applying. I should do this because that's what a male person does, or that's what an evaluator does. And I realized going through this process that, first of all, I could sit back and really look at the job advert and really think about, how does this align with what I'm looking for? And that didn't change. I assumed that I would still be desperately trying to throw my hat in everywhere and getting nowhere. And I realized I could interrogate the adverts, the organizations a little bit more to think about the fit. And I had a structure. I had the answers to the interview questions. I had the contents of the cover letter. What had I achieved? What was I working on? How did what I want and what I'd done, how did that marry up against what the organization or the hiring group was looking for? And so actually the job that I got, I still remember I picked up the advert, I looked at it and I'm like, this really resonates, but I'm not sure. And I put it down and then I picked it up again. I'm like, no, this is exactly what I'm looking for. This is, again, leading organizations through learning, connecting it to values and strategy and culture. I'm like, this is my jam. And when I went to apply, it all just poured out. I had all of the examples ready. I could make the connection, like why or how I thought I could contribute to this role and to this organization. It was all already sketched out in the worksheets. And then when it came time for the interviews, I've never been so prepped because I had the example, but not just, I've had the examples in the past, I had examples, but they wouldn't necessarily have been the most relevant ones. But now I had the through line, I had the story of who I am, what I thought I could bring, and specifically how it related to what the organization was looking for. And so I found that I could actually have conversations during the interview. It didn't feel so much like I had to perform, although I was performing, but it felt more like I could ask thoughtful questions. And I knew what those questions should be because I had already done all the preparation. I knew what I was looking for. So I wasn't just thinking, oh, I should ask some good questions. I actually asked questions that I wanted to know the answers to. So it felt like more of a conversation. It was so much less stressful. I was so much better prepped than I had been in the past. And I think the confidence, I think, also must have come through. I really struggled a lot before with imposter syndrome, and I didn't have that this time. I felt confident about the examples, what I could offer. If it didn't work out, it didn't work out, but I wasn't trying to fit a mold that I wasn't sure. I could only offer what I had to offer and feel comfortable, confident in that.
I love that. I'm so curious, Amy, do you feel throughout the program you actually started applying to less jobs? How did your job search strategy change throughout the program?
I definitely applied to fewer roles, but I applied to ones where I felt more of a connection. And actually, it eased a lot of the stress of the job search because rather than that panic of, oh my God, I feel like completely changed my background and my experience to fit, instead it was, how can I make the connection between what I have to offer and what this organization is looking for? And that was so much nicer than, how do I pretend that I know something about data science when I may not? And that was such a refreshing change. So I felt like I could also put more time into the application process because I was actually applying for things that I wanted that felt like a good fit. I remember at the beginning of the program, I was really worried that applying to fewer would mean that I was not as competitive a candidate. And I remember asking you that, should I be worried that actually I'm not applying to as many? And I remember you saying, no, it's about the strength of your application, the connections, your ability to tell the story and to make those connections also for the hiring panel to be able to say, look, this is how I think I fit. And this is how I think I'm addressing what you need, as opposed to, here's all this stuff about me that may or may not be relevant and probably was not very relevant. Applying for fewer, especially as you become more senior, is not indicative of you not being a compelling or competitive candidate. It's about the extent to which you are able to speak to what it is that they're looking for and not the number that you're applying for. And that was really meaningful for me. I really took that to heart and it worked out.
Absolutely. I think it's some of those ideas we have about being productive, we have to keep trying, that forces us to apply to as many jobs as we can. But in reality, it's, as you said, it's the quality of the applications. And as you gain experience in your career, naturally, there's less senior positions that are available. So the numbers game starts to change as well as you start progressing and gaining more experience and seniority in the field of evaluation. And I'm so glad you brought that up about the data science, because I remember in our last group coaching call, you said something along the lines of, oh, Maria, I bet you get so many clients that start the program thinking that they have to become data scientists. And then they realize through all of this reflective practice that they don't. How do you think this shift, this mindset shift, has impacted your career, where you're investing your learning time in yourself?
Oh my God. So for starters, I feel like I've saved money on what probably would have been fairly expensive courses that I would not have been able to put into practice. And that's the thing. I feel like as evaluators, we know that if we try to learn something and we don't use it, we're not going to hold on to it. And so I was falling into that trap of looking over and over for courses, free courses, certificate programs, thinking about how am I going to spend the money on this and afford this? But if this is what I need to get the leg up, I will do that. So it was occupying a lot of brain space and also not helping my confidence. And I think this is the thing that is exciting about evaluation, but I think can also be a challenge, is it's so diverse. There are so many ways in which you can show up and be a fantastic evaluator or a fantastic monitoring, evaluation, and learning person. And you don't have to be a data scientist. And so letting go of that meant that I could, again, have more space and energy for the things that were more aligned, that were more invigorating, that would actually help me develop the career path that I want. Letting go of the data science piece, I was also able to learn about AI, and I had space. So I did a deep dive into what does AI look like? How can I engage in AI as an evaluator, thoughtfully, ethically, as a thought partner, and really think about what does that look like practically? What does it look like to write prompts? What are the different types of AI systems that are out there? How could I use AI to help me with qualitative analysis? It freed up a whole space for me to really dive in. And now I can add that as something I'm able to do. And I wouldn't have had the space before. I wouldn't have had the patience, but also the clarity, because I think I would have still been like, oh my God, and I found myself able to dive into something completely new and learn more about it and apply it in my work. And it's something very relevant to all of us, to our sector. So I feel like that also freed up something important that I could pivot to.
Which is also going to be so important for your level of work that you're doing at a director level and helping organizations think through these challenges and how they're engaging with AI responsibly.
Exactly. And I feel like I can do that. I feel like I can do that confidently, thoughtfully. I think before I was rejecting AI outright, and now realizing that's really not a smart or feasible way to approach it. And so now feel, okay, I'm also not behind the curve. And I think particularly with AI, it's going to be so important for our field.
What was the part of the program or what of the activities we did in the program helped you actually make that connection between this is what I think I need and this is what I actually need to get to where I want?
So for me, I feel like the biggest transformation for me was in the first module. So the first part where there's the self-reflection, the identification of where you've come from, your successes, achievements, what matters to you, what's important to you. And I think seeing that all in its original and individual pieces, but also collectively in the long frame of this is what I bring and this is what I want. That was I don't even have the words to talk about the shift that brought for me mentally, because then I realized, oh, wait, actually, I have a lot of what I already need. I don't need to, there are definitely things to learn, but I don't need to go out and conquer whole new subfield in order to be able to advance in the career that I've already started. And so for me, it was doing that stock taking of who am I? What have I done? What's important to me? Where do I want to go? And having someone validate that's a feasible and viable pathway was so important. And so from there, everything just flowed in terms of moving to the other modules and redoing my resume and redoing my cover letter and redoing my LinkedIn and redoing my interview, like all the other things that I had been resisting. Like I was looking at my LinkedIn profile, just rolling my eyes. I don't think I had changed anything about it in years. All of it flowed because all of a sudden I had done the stock taking work to realize I'm on the path that I'm supposed to be on, not to sound all spiritual about it. I feel like, okay, this happened with intention. And now I have something to say and something to share. And so I can revise all my materials to support that. So everything flowed from that original, let me sit down and really figure out what am I all about and where do I want to go with this?
I love that. And then the aha moment is data science does not come in any of that, right? When you did your ideal job description and you put all of these things together, data science really didn't play a part in any of what you've been building towards and what you want out of your career. And I'm so happy that you came to realize that and really take ownership of that. I think just as you said, I had also been on the journey of thinking that's where I wanted to go and invested a lot of money on it and then didn't get the chance to practice. And it happens to so many evaluators when we see what I call like shiny stars and things we think we need to become more competitive in the job market and grow in our careers. When I like what you said, you actually were already in the path towards where you wanted to go. You've talked a lot about finding that confidence in yourself again through this process. How has this newfound confidence helped you in other areas of your life?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I'm showing up. I've been wanting to show up better, to show up with kindness, to show up with fun and laughter. Those are all really important to me. And I think they're an important part of evaluation and learning. And I was finding it hard to dig into myself and just show up in the ways that I wanted to and connect with others. And I think also working remotely, it's hard. We all know it's hard to connect remotely. It's even harder when you're not feeling like your best self. And I feel so much lighter. I feel like I'm able to show up thoughtfully with intention to draw connections and build connections with other people and to not feel stressed about where is this going to go. I think I was definitely viewing things more through a transactional lens. I think also because I was looking for work or looking for a new role, and I feel much more comfortable simply building the relationship, building the connection. That is an end in itself and an important way of connecting and growing your career, but also growing as a person and learning. So I feel really, it took away so much stress. So I just felt, okay, I can do this. I connect with people and I can really enjoy it because I enjoy this work so much. And I found the joy again. And I think I'd been missing that for a while.
I love that. And I've also loved hearing how you've continued building those reciprocal relationships that we really nurtured during the program after that. Amy, how are you seeing your career differently now?
I think I was equating career with job. A job equals career. And so if I don't have the right job or the perfect job, a paid job, then somehow I am not building a career. And I think what this also gave me was better perspective, taking that step back and thinking, oh, actually, career isn't just a job. It is the culmination of jobs, connections, volunteering, areas of interest, how we learn, what we read about, what we care about, and thinking through, like, how do I show up as a person, not just as someone who does work? And that is such a privilege. And I have your voice in my head, Maria. Remember you saying sometimes you have to take a job because this is the world we live in. But taking a job that maybe isn't your dream job, that's okay because there are other things, other ways to invest yourself that contribute to your career. And so I have a much more relaxed view on what does a career mean and what does it look like. Much more confident that I'm getting there and really realizing that the volunteering work, the project-based work, the consulting, all of that is contributing to what could be considered a career. And I think I also was almost thinking of career as something you look at through your rearview mirror. So what have I done in the past? That makes my career. Actually, no, I can set goals now that will change over time. And that's all part of this bigger picture. That's my career. And part of that career is about relationships and it's about connection. And it's not just about what's produced. And so that was also a huge realization for me. So I feel better about, yes, my job was my job and I'm happy to have one. I feel lucky to have one. But there are other ways that I can invest my time that connect to my career and are rewarding and important.
I love that. I love that perspective on our careers is not just what we've done. It's also what we're doing, what we're planning, and the goals that we have. Amy, and I've just loved seeing you be where you are at now and remind yourself of the amazing evaluator you are. And I'm just so excited to hear how your new amazing role goes. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with the audience?
I think we spend so much time encouraging others to learn and to reflect. And we talk a lot about how important it is to do. And then I think it's hard to create this time and space for ourselves to do that. And I think it just bears repeating that when you create the space and the conditions for self-reflection, the truth is you have it. You've done it. You're doing it now. You're thinking about these things and you are good enough. I know it sounds corny, but it's true. And so prioritizing time and space to not be over-focused on busy work, but to actually take the time to think about who am I, what's important to me, and where do I want to go is the best thing you could possibly do.
I love that. Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Maria.